Now, when we were having arrays, in C we are giving supposedly an integer array of say 5 elements is there. So the problem with the arrays is that the size which I'm having, this size is fixed. Supposedly I do not know the size required, so I take the array to be of size 1000, and whatever the user is entering, I run all the loops throughout the program till that size. Now the problem is either the size is small if the company or student database or जिसके लिए भी आप program बना रहे हो, that is growing larger, then the size will be less. In case you expected 1000 to be the size, but only 900 have joined, so 100 locations would be wasted. Now integer locations are only 4 bytes in a 32-bit compiler. But supposedly it was not an integer, it was some structure. I was having some structure student, now which is having some character name, say of 100 size. Then I'm having some, again, a character to store, array to store the stream, whatever stream you people are in. Then there is another character array to store your phone numbers, which is 10 digits, and so on. There are many things, and this is a self-referential structure. Since I will be creating in that manner, we'll see that. Now supposedly is कि हमें arrays बनाने हैं, so what I'm doing is structure student, and I'm creating here S of size 100 for 100 students. So what happens is, अब university में supposedly this is taking, I'll have to add up all, assuming one structure takes 1000 bytes, assuming that, right? 100 plus 50 plus some integer would be, so taking one student data record takes 1000 bytes. 100 student data records क्या होगा, when you are creating this array in memory, 1000 bytes की 100 locations will be given, and that too you have to find continuous memory locations. This might be a problem. Continuous इतनी memory हो सकता है available ना हो memory में, it might be a problem. Or especially when you are not having all the 100 seats filled, only 93 are filled, then also you are technically wasting 7000 bytes of RAM, right? RAM, when we are working in this, we are working in the RAM memory. And supposedly you have students who are being upgraded, or you have students who are coming from diploma courses in the second year, so 100 se plus 5 ho gaye. So now how do you get those 5 extra spaces? There is no option to do that. So these are the shortcoming of arrays, due to which we move to dynamic memory allocation and we use linked list. So first we use, instead of allocating memory directly, single list के लिए we use dynamic memory allocation. So what do I mean by dynamic memory allocation? We have all gone through this earlier, that memory, that RAM that is allocated to any program which is running any C program, so it is divided into various parts. I have some read-only memory that has your program code, etc., which is running. Then I have some global area called as heap, and I have other area which is my variables and other functions are going to be stored in this area, right? Now, when I'm using arrays, I'm using this area of the memory for storing the location. There is one more option called as dynamic memory allocation. What it does is, when the program is executing, at the runtime, you allocate whatever memory is required from heap. And it need not be continuous. You can take from here, then here, whatever is available, you keep on picking the memory till available. The global variables are stored in heap and dynamic memory is taken from heap part. So how do you achieve that in C? C is a procedural language, so it uses functions or procedures to implement various tasks. So the memory allocation is also done by function. Which function is used for memory allocation? Memory allocation function. So you have a function called as malloc, M-A-L-L-O-C. This is memory allocation. Memory allocation, malloc function is used, and when you are going to use the malloc function, what you are giving is very importantly, you should, what you are giving here, supposedly what goes in here is the size that you want. कितने साइज आपको देना है. So here you only mention the size, जितनी बाइट्स आपको allocate करानी है, size in bytes. जितनी भी bytes you want to allocate from the memory, you mention that size. This is what malloc function does. This is the parameter जो आपको function में देना है. इससे क्या होगा, जितना भी size आपने mention करा है उतनी memory allocate हो जाएगी. अब जब memory allocate होगी, how would you be able to use that memory? Now the memory supposedly starting at address 1000. This address 1000 needs to be returned. Where are address stored in C and C++? They are stored in pointer kind of variable.
Pointers.
So whatever we are getting in return from this function should be stored in some pointer variable. Correct? So some pointer is equal to this. Now understand. Pointer को वो memory allocate हो गई उतने बड़े size की, and the first address is stored in the pointer. Now that is a pointer which is not, it is going to act one byte, one byte, one byte. अगर आपको supposedly this was a structure or an integer, so you have to read it as an integer when you will be dereferencing. So you need to mention, you need to dereference the pointer here into the data type, जिस type का pointer variable है. So this you have to make it pointer, और यहाँ पे data type you have to mention. So what I am trying to say is, let me simplify this in simpler terms, and let me just write it once again. So what I am doing here is, supposedly I am taking integer pointer, I am taking, right? I am writing here pointer is equal to, I am taking, please allocate me how much memory, जो भी system है उसके accordingly I use the size of function. Size of is a function that returns the size of whatever is there in the parenthesis. That integer is having 4 byte on 32 bit or 8 byte on 64 bit or 2 bytes on a 16 bit compiler. Accordingly this will be calculated. That much memory will be allocated. अब memory allocate होके मुझे उसे integer की तरह ही treat करना है. That means अगर आपको 4 bytes allocate हुई हैं तो आपको उन 4 को 1 में treat करना है, so that you can read the entire integer value. Okay, so you have to typecast it explicitly into type integer. जो भी pointer का type है ना, उसके type में आपको typecast करना है इस allocated memory के address को, then you assign it to the pointer. Is it clear? So 1000 जो था वो 1000 तो pointer में जा रहा है, but वो 1000 किस type का है? Integer type का है. So 1000 to 1003 would be considered as a single unit for a 32-bit compiler. ये समझ आया? No answer. Either I am not audible or I am not understandable. Thank you, Sia. We will take many more examples. Supposedly, let me take other examples also. Okay, let me take some more examples. I am having integer, say pointer I. Then I am having a float, say pointer F. I am having character pointer C. I want to allocate memory to these. I is equal to, I use the malloc function to dynamically allocate the memory. I am guessing कितनी memory allocate करनी है मुझे, तो मुझे एक integer जितनी memory I want to allocate, and I want to typecast into type integer. So pointer integer I have to make sure it is of type integer, and integer कैसा, integer pointer. So I have to make sure, sorry, integer pointer, the type is integer pointer. So whatever is allocated in memory, वो address जो है that comes into I is another variable that stores this address to the integer location in heap area. Dynamically जब तक execute नहीं होगा तब तक memory allocate नहीं होगी. I will be there, but this memory would not be there. Similarly, F is equal to memory allocate कितनी memory? So you calculate the size of the data type, which is a float है, and you typecast it into a float pointer before assigning it to the pointer. First case mein, if it is a 32-bit compiler, then 4 bytes will be allocated to I. If it is again a 32-bit compilers, 8 bytes will be allocated to F. Finally, I am writing C is supposedly I want to allocate the memory here. So I am taking size of and I am mentioning float. Oh, sorry, character. And I am typecasting into type character pointer. So only a 1 byte will be allocated to C. अब क्या है I में भी कुछ एड्रेस है से 1000, F में भी कुछ एड्रेस है से 1050 and C में भी कुछ एड्रेस है supposedly 1080, but 1000 is pointing to 4 bytes of memory, 1050 is pointing to 8 bytes of memory, and 1080 is pointing only to a single byte of memory. Are you understanding this? I am answering this, yes. Now everybody is clear with what is happening in memory allocation. The question which arises here is कि मैम हमने array जितनी memory तो allocate ही नहीं करी, कितनी memory allocate करने. So what you can do now, अभी तक तो हमने single लिया है. If I want to allocate an integer in complete array of type student or something, then what do I do? So I'm just giving you a small example. Supposedly I'm having an integer, again a pointer PTR I am taking. Now I am saying that point and I am taking another integer n, which is the number of students, and I am scanning the value from the user. So I'm using a %d as this format specifier and %n. So this value n ki value, n is the size of the array jitni memory I want to allocate. Now what I do is pointer is equal to, I will be allocating memory allocate size of, kitna size of. Now you have to mention how many bytes you want to allocate here. How do you mention the size of integer? So you can say size of integer, and you can even mention n over here. You can do that. After that, you have to typecast this into again integer pointer. So that many locations are allocated, and integer pointer mein, after typecasting, you can store this into pointer. So this is how dynamic memory allocation would work. Although we are not going to use this right now, we will be allocating one node by one node in the linked list. But this is clear to all. So we are not wasting any time or any space here due to the problem with the arrays. Let's move on to what is a linked list. What do we mean by linked list? What is there? Linked list is nothing, but it is a collection of nodes. Linked list are collection of nodes. What nodes? Collection of similar type of nodes. It is important that the data that I am having is of similar type. So similar type of nodes. What is a node? Now node has two values. This is one single node. It has two values. One is the value. Another is an address which is pointing to next in the list. So supposedly I have a list 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I have this list supposedly. So there is node 1. This is node 1. Node 1 ki kuch value hai. Supposedly the value is 10. Just assuming. Currently the list is having only one node. So the address within the list is null. Nothing. I add another node. This is node 2. The value in the node is supposedly 20. This is an integer list, as you can see, and it is not pointing to anything. But to connect this node with the list, the previous node should now point to the next node. I only know the address of the first node in the list. So this is since the first node. So I know कि इसका address is 1000. किसी pointer में हमने इसका address save कर रखा है. Okay. I keep on adding the nodes and I keep on creating the list. Some value. This is my node 3 and so on. जैसे ये value integer है, this value can be of type character, float, entire structure, whatever. But pointer will be pointing to similar kind of data, right? So this is how we represent a list. Now, there are various kind of linked list available. It is called a linked list because it is a list of elements which are linked to each other. That is why this is simply called as a linked list. So let us try to understand what kind of linked lists are available to us. So there are various types of linked lists, linear list, or different type of lists. So I am having a linear linked list. What do I mean by linear linked list? Linked list I am representing by LL. So you are having one node connected to another, connected to another, connected to another, till the last node which is not connected to anything. This is a linear linked list. I can have a circular linked list. What a circular linked list does? This is singly circular list. This is a, and this is also single linear linked list. So this is a single linked list. We'll understand what we mean by this. Now circular list के case में क्या है? All the nodes are connected in a similar manner and as in the linear list, but the last node is connected, is pointing to the first node. This is a singly connected circular linked list. Last node is connected to the first node. Last node stores the address of the first node. This is a circular linked list. Now we have a doubly linked list. What do I mean by a doubly connected linked list? Node का size बढ़ जाएगा. We have value and we have two pointers, a pointer to the previous and a pointer to the next. So a doubly linked list would point to next. The next node would point to previous also, would point to next also. This is a doubly linked list. And the last would not point to anything. Last का next किसी को point नहीं करा, previous would be pointing. Right? We'll do all of them in complete details. Then we have doubly circular linked list. Doubly circular linked list, which means I have a circular list where next points to the next, previous points to previous. And the last element in the list will point to the first element, and first element ka previous will point to the last element. So this is a doubly circular linked list. Till here the types of linked list are clear. Let us pick up the first list and let us try to understand how the list works. Linked lists are not stored in continuous memory locations. वो heap में कहीं भी store हो सकते हैं. एक node यहाँ पे create हुआ, दूसरा node यहाँ पे create हुआ. जहां जहां memory free होती जाए वहां node create हो सकता है. इसीलिए क्योंकि continuous memory allocation नहीं है, इसलिए memory की efficiency बढ़ जाएगी. If memory is available, then you can use it. If that amount of memory is available, then that can be used. They are not stored in continuous memory locations. They are dynamically allocated memory at runtime. So singly linked list is having a node pointing to another node, pointing to another node, pointing to last node, and the last node points to nothing. And we have first. So सबसे पहले हमें सीखना है कि how do we create a node? How do we create a node? Create a node के लिए in C language we use structures. So I'm going to create a node with a value and a pointer to itself. अपने आप जैसे डेटा को पॉइंट करना है उसे. So what I do is I use struct is the keyword. I give it a name. Supposedly I am giving it a name as node. Any valid variable name can be given here. Supposedly my data is of type integer, so I am taking integer value. And I need a pointer. Now the pointer is pointing to what? It is pointing to another node. So I'm wanting a pointer of type struct node pointer. Such a structure is called as self-referential structure. This is called as a self-referential structure. Right? So since it is referring to its a type of itself, so it is a self-referential structure. This is how, this is only the factory. अभी कुछ create नहीं हुआ है. This is only the structure, only the data type that you have created. This is a user-defined data type. अभी इसके type के variables we will be creating. So I'm having an integer main, and I'm creating struct node. Supposedly I'm creating, I have to use pointers, so I'm taking a first. Generally first node, last node we create here only. So I can create a first here, and I can take a temporary node which I will be using later on. So I've declared the variables of type this also. Now after this is going in the global area of the program, right? After this, I should always do first is equal to temp is equal to null. That means abhi currently they are not pointing to anything, right? So the first thing is creating the linked list. Creating का मतलब है insertion in the linked list. Okay. So when I am going to create a linked list, I am creating a new node. So I am creating a function जिसमें कि I want to create a new node जिसमें सिर्फ integer value pass हो रही है. So the function is, supposedly I am using the function here, create node. It is returning essentially nothing. क्योंकि node create होगा तो link list में join हो जाना चाहिए. आपको इसमें कुछ और add नहीं करना है. And you are taking an integer value that you want to assign to the value of the structure. So now when you are creating a new node, this is only going to create the node. Link list से attach करने के लिए आपको पूछना पड़ेगा insertion कहाँ है. So when you are creating a new node, only creating a new node, what you are doing over here is, in this case, you should return a type node if you are only creating. If you are doing insertion, हमें ये समझना पड़ेगा insertion कहाँ हो रही है. So first of all, understand, whenever you will be creating the node using the memory allocation, after that, अब ये list है. I can insertion can happen in 3 ways. As you all know, insertion can happen at beginning, after a particular node, or at the end. I can insert at all 3 points. So I am creating 3 different functions for this. Let us see now. Structure is clear. Let us try to see how do we insert. So I am creating a function for insertion. Now in case I need to insert in the beginning, this is a linked list. If I want to insert over here, then what do I need to know? If it is an empty list, condition देखो, अगर empty list है, कुछ है ही नहीं, if first is equal to null, अगर first null है, that means it's an empty list. So I just create a node, store the value, create the pointer to be null, and this becomes my first. अगर first node already existing है and I have to insert at the beginning, then I create a new node, I store the value, I point this to the first, and I make this, now this is not the first, I make this as the first node. This is the insertion at the beginning. So let us try to write the code for this. So I am going to do a void insertion at beginning, and I am reading an integer value which is to be stored. Okay, this is what I am doing. So first of all, I am checking if first is equal to null. If first is equal to null, it implies then this is an empty list. Empty list here, so you just create a node and you allocate it. Okay, so or you can just create a node and then start with the comparison. पहले node create कर लेते हैं. So let us create a node. How do we create a temporary node? I am saying temp is equal to memory allocate करनी है. कितनी memory allocate करनी है? How much memory is to be allocated? Of the size structure. So I am taking size of struct node. This much memory is to be allocated, right? And I have to typecast it into struct node pointer. Is this clear? इससे क्या होगा, मेमोरी में एक नोड क्रिएट हो गया और उसका आपको वैल्यू टेम्प में मिल गई. सो टेम्प इज रेफरिंग टू दिस नोड विच इज हैविंग सम वैल्यू एंड सम पॉइंटर. ओके, yes. After I have done allocation, what I will do is temp dot value is equal to value. I have copied the new value in the node. अभी pointer की value नहीं ली है. Now I am seeing if first is equal to null, that means the list is empty right now. This means an empty list. When the list is empty, what do I need to do is, I will simply say temp dot, I had created the value. Structure node में हमने क्या लिया था? Struct node pointer, I believe I have taken. PTR was taken? Yes or no?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
So since temp is a pointer, it will not take dot. Please change it to arrow operator. Temp PTR. PTR maybe or value maybe. Please change it to arrow operator. Temp is a pointer. It is not a normal variable. It is a pointer. Temp arrow value is value. Temp PTR is null. And first is equal to temp. अब we have the first here. सिर्फ नोड नहीं लिख सकते, उसके लिए रीनेमिंग कर सकते हैं. I'll just tell you that. Now if it was not that, else what should I be done? So I'm taking an else. Else what will I do? I will say that I should point it to the first, whatever the first element is. So I'm saying temp PTR still is equal to first, and once again first is equal to my new whatever I have created, temp. So this is how insertion at the beginning of the linked list will take place. Is it clear to all? Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
Do you want me to write it in the form of a proper program? I knew that. I will write the entire program for you all so that it becomes thoda sa easier. Supposedly I am writing. Now here you will be hash include standard input output dot h. You are creating struct node, right? And you are having integer value, and you are having struct node pointer PTR, and I am creating first and temp here to be the global pointers to this structure. Also globally I am saying that first is equal to temp is equal to null initially once. Fine, initially they're not pointing to anything. Now I am creating the first function. I am creating void insert at beginning, and I am reading a value in this function, integer, supposedly v. Then what am I doing? I am creating a new node. So my temp is equal to struct node pointer. This is I am typecasting. What am I typecasting? I need to dynamically allocate the memory. Allocate the memory of what size? I have to allocate the memory of size of a structure. So this is struct node. I have to allocate this much memory, and I will typecast into struct node pointer. After allocating, I am saying temp value is equal to v, and also I am saying temp pointer, since insertion is at beginning, is equal to first. Even if it is an empty list, तो null का null copy हो जाएगा. अगर empty list नहीं है तो whatever the first is, that will be coming here. And now I have to say that first is equal to temp. Even if it was empty or not, I can simply say first is equal to temp. So I have done the insertion at beginning. Let us try to dry run this program. Supposedly from my void main, I am taking an integer n. I read the integer from the user जो मुझे list में डालना है. That integer I am reading and I am calling insert at beginning of the list n. I want to insert this n. I should be able to show the list, which I have not done here. So again I am printing just the first element for saying show list. We should do traversal, we have not done here, but supposedly a single, and I am reading the first and I am reading the value. So whatever is value in the first node, that would be printed. Supposedly this is the program. So let's dry run this. What happens now? Supposedly the program execution will begin in the main. Integer n is created. Scanf, supposedly you enter a 10 here. Now you are calling insert beginning 10. So this has been called for a value 10. You come here, insert beginning 10. So we get 10. Now you create a new node. New node is created का क्या मतलब है? A new node is created of type structure where you have the value and the pointer. Whatever this is stored at, supposedly at 1000, temp gets that location. So temp is pointing to this location. So temp is created and it is now pointing to this new node. This new node has been created. After creation of temp, after this step, we have created the new node. Then I am saying temp value is equal to V. So V is having the value 10. Temp value becomes 10. Now first and temp were already having null. Then I am saying temp pointer is equal to first. So temp के pointer में first की value आ गई. First is storing the value null currently. So that null gets copied here. So it is null. Then I am saying first is equal to temp. So first is now not equal to null. It is now having the value of temp, which is 1000. This is the list I have created. Okay. Now insertion at beginning of n has happened. So when you print the first value 10 gets printed. Now I am saying supposedly I am trying to insert another thing. Supposedly now this becomes my first. Now this 1000 पे जो address है, this is my first, right? Supposedly I do insertion at the beginning of a value say 20 and I am printing again. So what will happen? Again insertion at beginning is called with the value 20. Now again a new node is created. So a new node, malloc is called, memory is allocated of the size of structure for the value and the pointer given to temp. So temp is pointing to this, supposedly an address of 1050. Just taking an example. Temp value is equal to V. So the temp value is equal to 20. Temp pointer is first. Temp pointer is first. इसका मतलब this is having 1000. It is pointing to this and I am moving first here. So technically if you see what is happening over here is, if you just try to analyze what is happening over here, I have created a node 20 which is now storing the value 1000 and pointing to another node which is still storing null only here. This is at 1050, this is 1000. This is now my first. So insertion at beginning is done. Supposedly I again do insertion at beginning of a value say 400. Then what happens is again we come at this function. Again a new node is created. So you again create a new node which is temp. Supposedly the address is 1020. It is not necessarily कि वो इससे बड़ा हो या इससे छोटा हो. Nothing. Whatever the location is available, according to that memory is allocated. Now temp value is equal to V, which is in this case 400. Or 400 जो value है, this value is copied here 400. And temp pointer is pointing to first. This is first. So now temp pointer is pointing to first. and first is equal to temp. So now this is not first, this becomes my first. पूरी लिस्ट को एक्सेस करने के लिए मेरे पास पूरे प्रोग्राम में सिर्फ यही पॉइंटर है. So it is very important to maintain this pointer, which is the first pointer. Now since this is insertion at the beginning, so we are inserting at beginning. Linked list में first in first out, last in last out ऐसा कुछ नहीं होता. Insertion can be done at the beginning, insertion can be done at the end, insertion can be done at the in between also. अभी हमने सिर्फ insertion at beginning देखी है. Is this code clear to all of you? Insertion at beginning? Yes? Is it clear to all now? Now if this is my list, if I want to insert at end, what does that mean? Supposedly I want to insert a value 100. So I will create a new node 100 and I will make the previous pointer 100 will store null, and whatever is the last element in the list that should point to 100. Yes. Similarly, if I want another element to be inserted, I create a new node with the new value, whatever is there, point to nothing, and make the second last pointer to null. Now the point is, how do I reach this, or how do I reach the last value? How do I traverse the linked list? That we have not understood. So let me see, how do I traverse the linked list first? Supposedly this is the linked list. I only have something called as first available to me. Rest other values are not available to me. So how do I traverse it? I store the first, I take the temporary variable temp is equal to first, and if temp is equal to null, sorry, not temp, temp ka next, temp ka whatever the PTR is, it should not be is equal to null. Then what should happen? Matlab it is not the last element. This is now temp. I have to move it. Temp ka pointer is not null. There is still more element. Then temp should point to temp pointer. That means temp is equal to temp pointer. इसका क्या मतलब हुआ? मैंने क्या करा है यहाँ पे? इसका मतलब ये हुआ कि if this is stored, when I am saying that temp is equal to first, तो temp में क्या value आ गई? 1020. When I am checking temp pointer is not equal to null, temp के pointer में 1050, it is not null. Then go ahead, temp is equal to temp pointer. That means temp is now 1050. So now this becomes temp. Again check pointer is not null. Temp is equal to temp pointer. It becomes 1000. Now this is not temp. This becomes temp. Again check temp pointer is not null. No, it is pointing to something else. Whatever it is pointing to, that is the value of temp. So now this becomes temp. Again check temp pointer is still not null. Temp is equal to temp pointer. Temp now is equal to temp pointer. So this becomes temp. Now I am checking temp is it pointing to null? Yes. Temp pointer जो है वो null है. I will come out of this. Traversal finish हो गया. I will come out of this. Now temp is pointing to the last element in the list. This is the last element. Now whatever new node I am creating, that would not be in temp. So I am supposedly taking a new node, and this new node is again same malloc. Same तरीके से you will be allocating memory. Size of struct node, and you are typecasting it into struct node pointer. Now after doing this, new node value is equal to whatever new value you have to give it, and new node pointer is equal to null. New node का pointer तो null ही होगा. After this, what you have to do is temp pointer जो कि null था, that should point to this new node. So after this, the crux line here is temp pointer now point to the new node. फर्स्ट इज स्टिल एट फर्स्ट, फर्स्ट को मूव नहीं करा है, टेम्प के पॉइंटर में न्यू नोड का वैल्यू डाल दिया है. सो नाउ इफ आई एम क्रिएटिंग द न्यू नोड here, whatever value it is having, temp pointer will now point to this node, whatever it is having the value. Is it clear to all? Are you all understanding the concept of how I am creating insertion at the end? This is the code we will follow for इसी को अगर हम ऊपर एक फंक्शन लगा दें void insert at end and I am taking a value here, supposedly integer value, and this I put in the curly brackets from here till here. This becomes my code for insertion at the end. Is it clear to all?